out. They all talk about Ronald Reagan. Peggy, you worked for him. Did you see any Reagans out there on the horizon?
Oh, the great thing about being a Reagan is when they're on their way up, you can never tell. You always see a Reagan in retrospect, if you know what I mean. You can sort of see greatness as time passes. Look, what I saw is a lot of interesting folk, some real awkward moments. I think this is test driving the car, you know? I think it's getting in and saying, I don't know, does the brake work here? Is the gas working right? So there were moments of awkwardness. We'll see how it goes. It seemed to me there were a lot of interesting candidates who had plenty of room for improvement, but looked kind of promising.
Who's running the best race so far, Mark?
Well, I think CPAC cleaved the field into basically three groups. There's three guys now who, barring some collapse, unexpected collapse, are going to be finalists in this. Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, and Scott Walker, all very strong at CPAC, all can raise money, all understand the message they plan to drive straight through Iowa next year. And I think Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were both very solid, and they're kind of in their own tier right now to me. They are right on the precipice of being in that group saying we are finalists in this. Everybody else, Rick Perry, Chris Christie, Mike Huckabee, who didn't go to CPAC, I think those guys, Rick Santorum, those guys have to fight their way in to say we are going to be finalists in this contest.
Yeah, anybody in the Republican field look like a real threat to the Democrats, to the Democrat Hillary Clinton as it stands right now?
Well, I've said before that if Jeb Bush makes it to the nomination, and it's a big if, I do think that he would be formidable, because I think on all of the issues that right now Republicans are hugely vulnerable on, including their stance on immigration, including their ability to reach out to growing demographics that they know they need to in order to reach the White House. Jeb Bush has a history, his family has a history of being able to do that well. But I just don't see it happening at the moment. I do think he did well at CPAC. I think he was better than what people anticipated, and he handled it well. But I don't know that this is, for sure, it's not a done deal, because the conservatives, again, are going to continue clocking him on immigration and Common Core.
Kevin, I want to ask you, Peggy mentioned test driving the car. There was a tiny moment when the clutch ground with Scott Walker talking about his ability to take on global problems. He said, if I can stand up to the protesters, I can manage the world.
Well, look, I mean, I think too much was made of that. I think one of the lessons that Scott Walker has to take on this, and this will be the test of whether or not his candidacy is up to par, is when you are, look, when you're in Madison, Wisconsin, and you make a mistake, nobody notices. When you are a potential presidential candidate, everybody notices. The Democrats jump in, and 3 or 4 other campaigns that see it to their advantage will seek to elevate that. The big test for Scott Walker now is, does he learn from this, and does he become a stronger candidate as a result? So I think that is, I think, you know, look, the president himself actually compared ISIS to the JV, right? That's the actual commander-in-chief. Yeah. That's a bigger problem. In the large, if we're going to have a real debate about it, if we're going to have a real debate about it, that's a bigger problem. Scott Walker has to learn from this mistake, not to make those type of awkward parallels, and then move on.
Tough. Go ahead, Mike.
I learned at talking to people at CPAC, I think there's 2 front runners now, Walker and Bush. Bush, everybody talks about he's going to have to defend from the right flank. To me, his big challenge is more geographic. As the front runner, Iowa, New Hampshire, where does he play? Where can he win? Walker, I think, coming out of CPAC, has a different challenge, which is people think of him as playing in both lanes, right? Which is a strength, both a social and religious conservative and populist wing, as also the establishment wing. How does he balance that? How does he keep winning favor with the establishment wing that doesn't want Jeb Bush, while not alienating people on the left? He balanced on the populist right. He balanced that brilliantly at CPAC.
The other big question for Bush is he is the nominal front runner. You know, if you look at the organization and money, he has to make sure he doesn't run like a front runner. He has to run like he knows he has to earn this, particularly in those early primary states with those activists who don't. These activists don't want to be told who their nominee is going to be.
And they do not want the run for the nomination to look like a hostile takeover in which you nail down all of the strategists, all of the party eggheads, and all of the money.
Right.
That just, I know that sort of looks like a path to success, but to me it also looks like a path to danger.
Nobody ever put a bumper sticker on their truck that said money and organization.
Yeah, Mark, what happened to Chris Christie?
Yeah. I still think he's an undervalued stock here. He's the best brawler in American politics, and this is going to be a brawl. If he decides he's willing to run with less money, less organization, get in those debates and brawl. I think he can still be a player here, but I'm amazed at how Republicans across the spectrum have written him off. Trouble raising money. Bush has locked up those funds. He's now casting himself as an outsider. He told me in a brief interview I did with him on Wednesday in New Jersey that the reason Jeb Bush is the front runner for the nomination is because he's the son and father, the son and brother of presidents. That is going to be a populist message. But if I'm Jeb Bush and I'm worried about who's going to be on the stage with me, I'd be more afraid of Chris Christie.
What is the Chris Christie argument, though? Chris Christie is going to win because
he got elected twice in a blue state, and he can take it to Hillary Clinton.
And that's the joy of politics. He's a natural campaigner.
Exactly.
Can I point out, Chris Christie has the opposite problem of Scott Walker. Scott Walker gets to say things in Wisconsin the press doesn't notice. Chris Christie is across the river from Mark. Yeah. He's across the river from the mainstream media, and they kill him every day.
One of the things that struck me coming out of CPAC is that every single candidate took a swing at Hillary Clinton. They were obsessive about that.
They had targets.
Well, that's true, but none of the candidates, I think, and I saw this in all the coverage as well, really rose up to the level of being able to deal with foreign policy like she would be able to if she runs.
Republicans, a lot of them said, if you want to stump a liberal, ask them what Hillary Clinton achieved as Secretary of State. What's the answer to that?
And that will be a running talking point for sure.
Well, it's a running question.
Well, the short answer to that is that she focused on making sure that America was stronger abroad than it was when Obama took office, and that is absolutely
Maria,
the case.
let me ask you this.
You know, and of course Republicans will disagree.
That's not an answer.
Let me ask you
not an answer.
Besides,
not a good one.
That is an important thing to put that out there.
Besides Iran and Cuba, name a country who the United States has better relationships now than when President Obama took office.
Well, the world is a very complicated place. What Hillary Clinton was able to do is to make sure that those conversations continue to happen behind the scenes, which is something that had to be repaired when President Obama took office, and nobody can say that that's not true. And I think moving forward, that is going to be her focus. If she runs, she's going to focus on how those conversations took place, what she was able to accomplish. If Iran gets done, for example, she will have done a lot to make sure to do the groundwork for that to be successful.
I think Carly Fiorina had the best line here. Her criticism of Hillary was that getting on a plane and going someplace is something you do. It's an activity. It is not an achievement. You know, I think that kind of broke through the other day.
And that was a good talking point, but when you go back and look at what her achievements might have been at HP,
it's a criticism.
Let me ask, before we get to the Fiorina Clinton knockdown, Mark, the fundraising questions for Clinton, how big a problem?
They're big and they're careless. Look, I have sympathy for the Clintons on this because they were taking money to do great work around the world. But she's known she's one who runs for president, taking money from foreign governments, which when she was in the State Department they didn't think was an acceptable, good idea, continuing to give paid speeches. I don't quite understand why, when this is clearly areas of vulnerability, why she keeps doing these things, why she allowed these things to happen. Really, it's almost inexplicable because this gives Republicans something to talk about. It gives them something that does break through, and it plays right into the narrative about the Clintons that is amongst the most dangerous.
Peggy, what would you do? What should Hillary Clinton do to get out from under that? Give back the money? Give a big speech explaining it?
No, giving back the money would be great. I guess what you're saying is, how do you get rid of this as an issue? I suspect it's simply going to continue as an issue. I don't think she will give a big speech, and I don't think she'll give back the money. And there are Republican criticisms that the money for the Clinton Foundation went not only for wonderful, good things, but also for some things that were essentially keeping the Clintons going as an operation. So look, that'll work its way out. The biggest speech Hillary has to make is the one that tells us why she is running for president, what she wants to do. End of story.
Let's be clear. The Clinton Foundation is a global foundation. They take money from organizations, corporations, governments, individuals from all over the world because of the kinds of things that they are doing to make millions of people's lives better. Give back the money? I don't think it's going to happen. If Bush becomes a nominee, should the Bush Library give back money that Kuwait has given, that Saudi Arabia has given the Bush Library?
It's not his library. One thing
It's
that
his family's library.
One thing that CPAC.
It's not her foundation.
Well, so you want to start talking about Hillary Clinton's brothers and about the President Roger Clinton? I mean,
And
that's
you
not
know
what
what?
this is
If you
about.
want-
Just
if
a real
you
quick,
want-
like
you know what? If
it's a big hangover here.
All right.
Republicans are going to have to.
I feel like John Boehner here. Settle down, gang.
Don't make
Kevin,
me
to
do my
you.
Boehner impersonation. The big hangover here is that this is the American public looks at this and they see the Clinton drama coming back. And is it something that they want to revisit, particularly at a time where Hillary Clinton's argument, and the key argument I think any presidential candidate has to make is, what's my vision in this contest for the future? And it's hard when a lot of voters are constantly reminded of all the bad things about the Clintons and the money scandals and the influence scandals, and that's something that I think really hurts.
I think when
really hurts Hillary
I think
Clinton.
when voters compare the records of the last Clinton and the last Bush, I think Hillary Clinton's going to come out winning.
And that's the last word. Thanks, all of you.